Peace, Islam. What's good, fam? It's your brother Cool. So, welcome to part 3 of the treaty series. This is the finale. Uh, I was getting a little tired sitting in front of the computer screen, so I printed them out. You guys already know the source from where I was reading the treaty, so y'all can just follow suit. So, like I said before, this is the finale. This is part 3 of the series. So, we're going to be covering Articles 21 to 25 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between Morocco and the United States of America. Okay. 21st article. I'm reading from the translation. The 21st article is that if there has been killed a Christian out of them or the reverse, and it has SIC in parentheses, or has wounded him, SIC, then he will be sentenced according to the rules of the sacred Mohammedan law, neither more nor less, and the trial is to take place in the presence of the consul. If the delinquent escapes before having been sentenced, the consul shall not be held responsible for him, nor for the crime he committed. Okay? Now let's read what they got in the United States version, right, of Article 21. If a citizen of the United States should kill or wound a Moor, or on the contrary, if a Moor shall kill or wound a citizen of the United States, the law of the country shall take place. Law of the country meaning the Mohammedan law. The law of the country shall take place and equal justice shall be rendered. The consul assisting at the trial, and if any delinquent shall make his escape, the consul shall not be answerable for him in any manner whatever. So what that is saying is that Moors are not to wound or kill U.S. citizens, and U.S. citizens are not to kill or wound Moors. And if such a thing were to happen, then the laws of that particular country would take place, and that law being the Mohammedan law. And being that we Moors, aka Mohammedans, right, being our ancient title, are those people they are referencing, then this is where you see our protection comes into play. As long as we abide by our laws and not injure and harm others, then others cannot harm or injure us without consequences. And those consequences are very major. Very major. But of course in the treaty you said it's talking about Moors. So, what is your nationality? Are you not a Moor? Are you not a Moor? I'm a Moor. I'm in my proper person. I'm an heir to the vast estate known as Maghreb al-Aqsa, Morocco, the extreme west, modernly called today North, South, Central America. All right, so that's what 2021 is pretty much specifying. The law of the country shall take place, meaning if any more gets into any issues, this is why it's important to be part of a body politic or a society, because being part of that is that if you get into any issues, if you have any issues with if a U.S. citizen, right, as a Moor, and let's say you get kidnapped or a U.S. citizen wounds you, which would be a cop. A cop is a U.S. citizen, state patrolman. All these people who hold so-called offices are considered U.S. citizens, right? So if you have any issues as a Moor with a U.S. citizen, the trial of your country shall take place. The trial shall take place under the laws of your country. Your country. Which one is your country? Is it Morocco or is it the United States of America? Which one is your country? Okay? And depending upon which country you are a part of, the laws of your country shall take place. So if you're a U.S. citizen, then the laws of your country shall take place. And if you are a Moor, then the laws of your country shall take place. And the consul, this is why it's important to have consuls, to be part of a society where it has consuls in place, right? The consul shall be the one handling your affairs on your behalf, being that you're not stateless. That's the whole purpose of a consul. We're communicating with those so-called public officials. Now, being that you're supposed to have faith, meaning confidence in your consul, if you flee before dealing with it as a man and standing on your square, then the consul is not held liable. So, hey, what happened to him? Hey, consul be like, hey, he ran. I don't know why, but he ran. That's on you. That's not on the consul at that point. So that's 21. Article number 22 is that if an American citizen, I'm reading the translation, if an American citizen shall die in our country and no will shall appear, their consul shall supervise his estate and his goods, meaning merchandise, and if there shall be no consul, the effects shall be deposited in the hands of some person worthy of trust until the party shall appear who has a right to demand them. Okay? But if heirs of his are present, the property shall be given to the heirs without interference. Or if he has designated in a will signed with his hand the person to whom the property is to be delivered, then the question shall be submitted to the consideration of the consul. So this is where the authentication of the birth certificate comes into play. But let's read the United States version, or the United States of America version of Article 22. If an American citizen shall die in our country and no will shall appear, the consul shall take possession of his effects. And if there shall be no consul, the effects shall be deposited in the hands of some person worthy of trust, until the party shall appear who has a right to demand them. But if the heir to the person deceased be present, the property shall be delivered to him without interruption. And if a will shall appear, the property shall descend agreeable to that will, as soon as the consul shall declare the validity thereof. All right, so understanding that these are societies, are trusts, that's what a foreign state is. A foreign state is a state that is mandated under trusteeship. And what makes it foreign? The fact that the members of that foreign state are not U.S. citizens. They are foreign. Okay? So, with that being said, this is where the authentication of the birth certificate comes into play. Like I said, that is your estate. And because we were considered lost at sea, right, incompetent and out to lunch, what happens is our estate was left in the hand of someone worthy of trust. Now, being that our ancestors had abandoned their seat of offices in 1860, was that 1860? I'm sorry, 1861, right? Which is the same year the Civil War broke out, the same year Abraham Lincoln went into office and declared the United States under the War Powers Act, right? AKA martial law, AKA the Lieber Code, and has been that way since. This is martial law for those who are stateless. Now, being that you are the heir of your ancestors who are deceased, who are also prisoners of war, but prior to being prisoners of war, they were nationals of a government not called the United States of America. It's very, very important to keep that in mind. All right, our ancestors were not U.S. citizens. Our ancestors were Americans. All right, and so when you authenticate the birth certificate, being that it's falling under treaty regulations according to UCC, right, 9-311. If he doesn't, just let it go, bro. Did you guys finish your food? Right? So, what it's saying is that the heir shall appear. You have to be the heir to appear, meaning come back into the light. You got to appear, and you should have a will in place. That will being your trust. The will being the indenture for your trust. Hey, chill out. Chill out. Right. As I was saying, right? So this is why the authentication of the birth certificate is crucial, because it is your estate. And if you don't reconvey that back into your trust via your will, right, which would be part of your treaty regulations, which would be equivalent to filing a financial statement, that's what you need to secure your estate as an heir. If you don't do that, it's considered abandoned, and abandonment is not honorable. Okay? Article 22 of the treaty, y'all. So if you ain't hear from no one else, you heard it from Cool. All right, the connection. Oh, but authenticating the birth certificate makes it real, or makes the fraud real. This treaty is not fraud. United States of America is not fraud. United States Corporation Company is fraud. Okay? And they has cheated our estates out of the United States of America. That's how we became prisoners of war. Or I should say wards of the state. Due to the fact that we became denationalized by us self-identifying as black, African, American, Negro, colored, everything else except that which ties us back to the family of nations. And that is being ourselves, Moors. We are Moors. And this is Morocco. See, but we're talking about ancient, right? This is an ancient mind speaking to you now, sitting here. I'm not talking a modern perspective. We're ancient peoples navigating in these modern times. But we still got to keep our ancient minds in check and be able to see the connection between the ancient times and what's happening now in modern times, right? This is how you navigate. So, remember, 22 speaking about reconveying your estate and you being the heir, appearing with your will to reconvey your estate back into your trust. 24. Where we at? 23. Article 23. The consuls. Hold on. Let me read the translation first. Right? Article 23 is that the consul shall reside in any seaport they like, and they shall be respected like consuls of other Christian nations before them. If a person of their nation has had dealings with a Muslim concerning money, he has caused it to be lost, the consul shall not be held responsible for it, unless the consul has given a written declaration to that effect, in which case he shall have to pay it. If he has not given such a declaration, then nobody has a claim upon him like. This is the case with all the consuls. All right, so let's let you know pretty much where we stand as consuls. Yes, we are responsible for our people, but not in every aspect. The people are responsible for themselves. And so if they don't act in honor, then the consuls are not held responsible for your lack of honorability. That's what 23 is talking about. So let's read what they say in the United States of America version. 23. The consuls of the United States of America shall reside in any seaport of our dominions, that they shall think proper, and they shall be, what did that say? That they shall reside in any of the seaport of our dominions? That they shall think proper, and they shall be respected and enjoy all the privileges which the consuls of any other nation enjoy. And if any of the citizens of the United States shall contract any debts or engagements, the consul shall not be in any manner accountable for them, unless he shall have given a promise in writing for the payment of fulfilling thereof, without which promise in writing no application to him for any redress shall be made. Once again, consul's not held liable unless he has a promissory or promise in writing or declaration. All right, so consuls of the United States are able to reside in any seaport of our dominions. Are these not our dominions? Am I not sitting on my dominions right now? So therefore, the consuls of these Christian nations are allowed to reside in any of our seaports. That's part of the treaty. And also, you got to understand, all these articles I'm reading, they work in the opposite direction. So if they're talking about Christians, the same applies to Muslims. If they're talking about Muslims, the same applies to Christians. It's a two-way treaty, y'all. Two-way, meaning both sides got to be active, awake, and on top of their shit. Because you can't enforce a treaty if you're not on top of your shit as the heir. That's 23. 24. Read the translation. Is that if either party should protest concerning any articles of the peace treaty, so that one asserted a question and the other asserted a question, and contended that this was not according to the article, and the controversy should last a long time, then peace is to be maintained, and both parties have to argue the best they can. If in the end one of them does not agree to the treaty of peace and strenuously declines, or if neither of them agrees to the treaty of peace and both strenuously decline, so that war is declared, literally put into action, then 9 months shall be granted to all the merchants to remove their goods, whenever our Lord, i.e. the Emperor of Morocco. So now you know when they're talking about thanks to our Lord, they're talking about the Emperor of Morocco, y'all. shows a favor to any Christian nation, we, i.e., the Americans, shall partake in it. So let's be very clear now. Moors are Muslims, right? Christians are of the United States of America. They are what would be considered modern day Americans. So when they're referencing Americans in this treaty, just know they're not talking about you, because you are a national of Morocco, not of the United States of America. Understand this, y'all. So if both sides choose or decide that the treaty is no longer agreeable and we end up going to war, 9 months will be given for both parties to gather all of their shit, revise all your estates, put everything back, save your property, make moving arrangements. If you have families, if shit's gonna get hot, you don't want your babies here if shit get hot. If you could plan ahead of time, this is what this treaty is speculating. Your treaty. Let's see what the United States of America version says for Article 24. If any difference shall arise by either party infringing on any of the articles of this treaty, peace and harmony shall remain notwithstanding in the fullest force until a friendly application shall be made for an arrangement, and until that application shall be rejected, no appeal shall be made to arms. And if a war shall break out between the parties, 9 months shall be granted to all the subjects of both parties to dispose of their effects and retire with their property. And it is further declared that whatever indulgences in trade or otherwise shall be granted to any of the Christian powers, the citizens of the United States shall be equally entitled to them. See? Christian powers, citizens of the United States, Americans. We're not talking about anciently. Anciently, the various copper-colored peoples found here by the Europeans. That's not what we're talking about. This is 1786. This is not before 1492. This is 1786. You got to understand the timelines and the dates. That's what's going to keep your mind mentally in order when you're replaying the story back in your head. All right? So with that being said, 24, let's go to 25 now. Last article, y'all. The 25th article is that this treaty of peace shall remain permanent if God please, by God's might and power. A period from of is evidently meant 50 years. We have delivered this book to the above mentioned Thomas Barclay on the first day of the blessed Ramadan of the year 200,000. Okay? Our calendar year, 2100. Their year, 1786. I'm sorry, 1787. All right. Let's read the United States of America version of Article 25. This treaty shall continue in full force with the help of God for 50 years. We have delivered this book into the hands of the before mentioned Thomas Barclay on the first day of the blessed month of Ramadan in the year 1200. I'm sorry, 1200. Yeah, so that would be equivalent to 1786. I certify that the annexed is a true copy of the translation made by Isaac Cardozo Nunez, interpreter at Morocco, of the treaty between the Emperor of Morocco and the United States of America. So, family, that's Articles 21 to 25 laid out of Part 3 of the treaty series, right? The finale. So this is why it's so crucial for us to go back to the ancient ways of our ancestors, go back to the ways of our treaty, you know what I'm saying, and go back to the ways of functioning through our treaty, as if none of these things in the modern ages exist, because our treaty is still active, it's still functioning. And if you can interpret it and be able to comprehend how it plays in today's society, then everything you need is in the treaty. You really don't need anything else. Don't need anything else. Everything you need literally is in the treaty. Without doubt, a contradiction. All right, so this has been part 3 of the treaty series. So this is why I tell Moors, once you nationalize, you get your trust in place, you should now begin the process of reclaiming your estate or reconveyancing your estate. Part of that process too is the birth certificate, authenticating that birth certificate, getting the full faith and credit, right? So now you become the registered owner or the holder in due course. All these things are important, family. So, and they all match up, add up, and line up with the treaty. So there's nothing to fear as long as you know who you are. You know you're not a U.S. citizen. You know you're indigenous to these lands. You know what country you are a national of. Okay? You know your family story, bottom line. And that's what it takes. If you know your family story, then that's what it takes to stand on your square. You can't stand on your square if you don't know your family story. So this is why it's so crucial to study thyself. Know thyself. And when you know thyself, study the laws that apply to self. Master those laws. Because once you master the treaty, you'll know, or I should say you'll see that you don't need nothing else, family. Everything you got, you need already. That's why the prophet said, I've saved the nation. Now take it and save yourselves. It's here already. It's here already. It's been here. Okay? So, that being said, family, it's your brother Koo. I highly doubt I'll be making another treaty series. Again, this is pretty straightforward. You know, just watch this over and over again. I don't need to go over this again. Now we can move forward onto other things as far as reclaiming our estate. You know what I'm saying? You guys better get familiar with the IRS Form 521. I'm sorry, not IRS Form, Social SSA Form 521, Form 56, SS5 Form. All right? Terminating the fiduciary, right? Terminating the person who was worthy of trust, which would be the trustees of the United States, because our ancestors abandoned their seats of government, so therefore there was no consuls, right, at that time to leave our estates with in good faith. So this is where the United States came into play with their trustees. So you got to fire them. Form 56. You got to rescind all signatures, right? Because you didn't make that contract. Your mama did, and they didn't give her full disclosure. So you get to rescind all signatures. IRS Form 521. Withdrawal of signature, right? Withdrawal of application. In the SS5 form, update everything. Tell people all the time, the most crucial part, whether you put your free national title and update it or not, you can leave the straw as you wish. The race and ethnicity, though. Oh, and the citizenship status, other. The race and ethnicity, though. American Indian, white. Go to that other, write more, -667, write Asiatic -463, write Moroccan -633. Those are our classification codes in the Justice Department, y'all. You can add that into your updated SS5 form with the Social Security Administration. And also that last question when they say your relationship to the person in number 1. It is not self. Your relationship to the entity written in number 1. I know, even if it may be in your free national name, it's going to be in all caps. It's going to be an entity, not you, right? But you hold the copyrights to your free national name wherever it goes. So, with that being said, self is not the relationship between you and the entity in number 1. The relationship between you and entity number 1, you should go slide on to the other box and write registered owner. Because that's what you become when you authenticate the birth certificate. You become the registered owner, the holder in due course of an original, not a copy. You see how all these things match up? So I'm going according to the alignment of the treaty. And I would suggest y'all do the same and stop running around in these hamster wheels. Okay? I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you know what you're doing. What I'm saying is if you're a simple person like me, it's neither necessary nor effective dealing with UCCs. Just handle your business with your treaty. Handle your business with your trust. Make sure you're tying yourself back to the Moorish Empire. Make sure you're being yourself. And when I say be yourself, you can't have knowledge of self. And please take this with no judgment. You can't have knowledge of self. You want to access or invoke your ancestral power, but you're not looking like your ancestors. Don't you know that everything you wear is a depiction of the energy you're outputting? So the colors you wear have energy, right? They're representation of the chakras. So everything you wear is a representation of the chakra energy you're outputting that day. How are you feeling? Okay, so if you're trying to invoke ancestral power and energy, how can you do that looking like everyone else? When clearly in Supreme Court cases it says that everyone is assumed to be a U.S. citizen unless proven otherwise. So the main thing is, before you even speak to someone, they should have a visual of you first, right? Don't they see you before they speak to you? So if you look at me, you already tell off bat there's something distinct about me before I even open my mouth. Okay? That's me demonstrating the fact that, hey, I'm saying otherwise. It's not an assumption I'm a U.S. citizen. It's not an assumption that I'm Negro, black, and colored. Unless I say so. You have to look like your ancestors. Do you know that every time I have gone down to court to file documentation, I look like myself? I don't go in there with a fitted cap on, jeans and stuff like that. I look presentable. I throw on my fez or my turban or both, depending on how I feel that day, and I rock out. Okay? You have to be yourself to invoke that ancestral power. You can't walk in there trying to file a declaration of nationality, but then you looking like a Negro, black, and colored. And please don't take offense to what I'm saying. I'm just simply going by Supreme Court case law, which says that all these motherfuckers is assuming that we're all U.S. citizens unless we show and prove otherwise. So we got to show and prove otherwise. By action, by deed, and by presentation. Look like your ancestors. All them pictures we got throughout American history of how our ancestors look. You never know. You ain't see our ancestors rocking no baseball fitted caps. They were rocking headdresses. They rocking turbans. They rocking scarves. They're rocking fezzes, burnouses, whatever you want to call them. We got to go back to the ancient ways of our ancestors. We got to look like our ancestors to invoke that ancestral spirit. We have to. There's no other way around it. You got to look like who you are. You can't say you're something, but you look like something else. You got to match up with who you say you are. And with that, I'll leave you with that, family. Love y'all. Peace. Islam.